Welcome to another podcast in St Mary's Adult Education Centre, and today I'm delighted to announce Edmund Lenihan, or Eddie Lenihan, one of the Irish author, storyteller, lecturer and broadcaster, and one of the few practising seanchaithe, am I pronounced that? Seanchaithe, traditional Irish folklore keepers in Ireland. Thanks very much, Eddie, for coming along today, and thanks to Stephen as well, Stephen, for getting Eddie in for us. It's an honour to have you here today. I know it's one our biggest podcast is going to go of all time, really. Eddie, how does it feel to be called the greatest of Irish storytellers and national treasure?
I don't know whoever calls me that, if anybody does.
No. But anyway, any information on your anything that's what comes up. A lot of people kind of say that you're a fantastic storyteller, and I've seen you on YouTube as well.
Well, I do tell stories, and I'm asked to tell stories, and it's nice to be asked. But I have been collecting stories for many, many, many years. So I suppose these things build up. And what I do when I tell stories is, and what keeps me going, and I don't forget it, is that the stories I tell, they're not my stories, they're the stories of the people who told them to me. And while I tell those stories, the people that told them to me haven't forgotten.
Aren't forgotten, yeah.
They're dead. They're dead, most of them now.
Yeah.
Because, you see, the people I collected those stories from, they tended to be the oldest.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that the oldest people know the best stories. It doesn't always go like that, because I'll always remember what an old man said to me one time. And he said it laughingly, but dead serious. If you're stupid at 20, you'll be stupid at 90. I suppose it was true. He was right. But I always tended to go for the oldest people because, look, by and large, they'll be gone first.
Yeah.
I was very, very sorry to miss the oldest man in Ireland only last week. And I had an interview due with him in Killarney. He was 107. And I was to go down to see him. Yeah, wonderful age. And I was to go and see him. But I missed him because I put it off too long. And you can't put off these things.
You don't know what's around the corner.
You don't.
Yeah.
For any of us. I was diagnosed 18 months ago with cancer myself. And I tell you, it gives you a jolt on a Monday morning to get back your bloods and find out from your doctor, come in, I have news for you.
Sorry about that.
Well, I got the all clear sense after the operation. It's wonderful also to get the all clear after your operation. So you feel lucky.
Yeah.
And it's encouraged me to come on, get up and go and do. That there's a lot to be done yet.
Yeah.
And do it.
Fair play to Eddie, Jesus, spread it, Now, Eddie, you've written over 20 books, which I got a surprise now with because because you're still a young man, as you said.
Only 72.
Well, there you go. And In Search of Biddy Early, 1987, These Are Only to Name a Few, The Devil is an Irishman, 1995. Gruesome Irish Tales, which I would love to read, 1997. The Tracks of the West Clare Railway. I hope I'm reading these properly. I can't read my own writing. And Meeting of the Crowd.
Meeting the Other Crowd.
It
was a book about the fairies.
Oh.
The Other Crowd, in other words. And that one has been translated into Japanese and Italian. And they used it for a while as a textbook in Moscow University, which only goes to prove that every culture and every country has its own fairy stories. Now, these weren't the little Walt Disney fairies. What I did with that is I let the old people tell their stories in their own words from the recordings.
Yeah.
And look, it's gone to 17 editions. And that book will sell on and on and on. I know that because that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
To hear the old people telling the stories in their own words. And I tell you, some of those stories were pretty gruesome. I tell you, because the Irish fairies, well, we know about them. They're not the little lads playing the holding match in the
Anymore,
middle of the night. Yeah, they're there too. People meeting these things as they came home from a game of cards and all the rest of that. Yeah, they're there. But there was also the thing of if you demolished a lone whitethorn bush, what might happen to you? If you built a house on a fairy path, what might happen to you?
Yeah.
Stories like that.
Yeah.
If you interfered with a fort.
Yeah.
Well, now, the last story in that book, I tell you, it's a pretty grim reminder of that.
What
happened to a man who did that?
Yeah.
They took him to pieces bit by little bit. His skin fell off, his eyebrows fell out, his nails fell out. He died bit by little bit by little bit, all because of a stupid promise he had made.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in the fairies.
Yeah.
Fairies,
Yeah.
Jesus, they never existed. Ha.
Yeah.
And he got a spade outside in the town of Gort. And when his neighbours tried to say, "Are you out of your mind?" he said, "Look, if they interfere with me," he said, "I'll take the skin off of them with that." He pointed to the spade.
Yeah.
Oh, he dug it.
Yeah.
He dug it.
He dug it.
He did.
Yeah.
But by Christ, he didn't take the skin off of them, but they took the skin off of him and all the rest as well. So I tell you, it was they're having fun in the background.
They're having fun in the background.
The young lads are having fun at their sus. But interesting stories.
Years ago now, I remember being told about Raheen Industrial Estate out there. You know, Raheen, it'd be out on the outskirts of Limerick. And there was Raheen, of course, was a name for a fairy fort to you. And I heard it was moved out there, and there's two factories come in. This is years ago now. Two factories come in, Wang and Atari, and at great costs to both of them, they never made it out there. They went to the wall.
Well, it wouldn't be moved. You can't move a fairy fort. You can't move it. You can't not. There may have been a fort on the site.
Yeah.
But the famous one around about Limerick, of course, was the one where the fairy bush was. Remember the huge factory that failed? What was it where they used to make the wire?
Oh, it's not there, is it? No.
No, that was the computer factory. The one out the Dublin Road at
Burlington?
No, not Burlington. No,
Yeah.
I'll think of it in a minute. It's out where the Castle Troy.
Oh, yeah.
Ferenca in 1976.
Yeah.
And there was a fairy bush there. And now the site was all ready and they wanted somebody to shift the bush. Now the people out there at that time, they were half city, half country, because the city was out almost as far as that in 1976. But they couldn't get anybody to shift the bush because even the big digger drivers, and that they knew that, look, it's a very expensive thing to repair a digger.
Yeah.
And they couldn't. But finally, they got a man. When they said, look, we don't want to destroy the bush. They got a fellow with a digger, a JCB. Look, we just want to move it. Take it in the bucket of the JCB, dig it up and replant it. Replant it on the edge of the site.
Yeah.
All right, he agreed. It wasn't destroying the bush, so it was replanted on the edge of the site. And the factory went ahead. We know what happened. The factory went on for a while. But do you remember? There were strikes. Everything that could
terrible unrest there. My father actually worked there. Yeah, terrible unrest.
Everything that could go wrong with that bloody factory did go wrong. It lasted, I'd say, how many? 6, 7?
I think it was 7 years.
7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I think so. Even remember Dr. Herman was taken as well. He was kidnapped that time.
Right.
Yeah,
and eventually it closed down.
That's right.
And all right, many people said it wasn't the strikes, it wasn't this, that, and the other thing. It was, why did they move the bush?
Well, there you go. Just
and the bush is still there.
Just the factory.
Factories and so.
It's well gone.
They said the boys, you don't cross them. You don't cross them.
Yeah. Do you know? Would you know much familiar or with any folklore stories around St Mary's Parish or the surrounding areas?
I'm afraid I don't. The only one, excuse me, in general, I do know, of course, about Limerick.
Yeah.
About how Limerick got its mayor. A very funny story. You know that?
No.
There was a time in Limerick, you see, when there was no mayor. The mayor had been, and in true Limerick style, they couldn't agree about a new mayor. There was factions, as there would be in any city, of course. There was this faction and that faction and the other faction, and no, they couldn't agree. Now, out in Clare, out beyond Cratloe, there was this poor man, Sean the Scoob, they called him. He was only a poor old brushmaker, a poor man. He lived with his mother alone there, up in the hills someplace, and he used to gather sally rods and heather and make brushes out of them. Now you'll see them in the old houses there by the fire for brushing in the ashes. And that was a poor kind of a living, but sure, when everybody was poor, it was a living. And all he had was a donkey and car. And lucky maybe to have it. And he'd take out the donkey full of these old brushes and travel around and sell them maybe for 2 or 3 pence. But the heather and the sally rods had run out all around him. He had cut what was there of them. So this particular day he was travelling on, and he came to the top of Cratloe, and he looked out, and it was coming evening time, and he saw the glow of lights, and he asked somebody, "Oh, what's that? Where's that place?" Well, they said, "Great, you Ramadan, isn't that Limerick?" I don't everyone know what Limerick is. So Jessie came home and he asked his mother about Limerick. Limerick, what's that? Where's Jessie, she said, we were over any place. Limerick, it's a big city down there by the Shannon. Shannon? Christ, you'd think now he'd have heard of the Shannon. Christ wouldn't have flowing not too far below the house. Oh, he said, I must see that place. So a couple of days later, on he went, up to the top of Cratloe again, and of course he was a frightened kind of a lad, would he, wouldn't he, would he? He headed on. Now, meanwhile, inside in Limerick, Jesus, things had gone to the bad entirely. When there was no law and order now, things had fallen into disrepair entirely when there was no mayor. The lights had gone out, no police, no nothing. Laneways, fellas creeping out of laneways now that have never crept out of laneways before, low kind of reptiles. Respectable people passing on the streets, and a hand would come out, they'd be grabbed by the throat, and maybe a knife stuck in them or something, or maybe not, but hands be rifled through their pockets, their purses pulled out, and they'd be dumped out into the street again. Ships stopped coming up because the rumour had gone down. Don't go to Limerick, else the cargo will be took and you won't be paid. Things were in an awful state. Jesus Christ, help us and save us, aye. Things were gone down and down and down, and they said, what will we do? There'll have to be a mayor got. So they decided inside in the corporation house or whatever you call it, that look, since we can't decide here, we'll have to decide on someone. And the decision made was that the next man that had come in over the bridge there at the castle, what do you call that bridge?
It's Thomond Bridge.
Thomond Bridge. The next man that had come in over Thomond Bridge, he'd be the mayor. Meanwhile, Sean the Scoob, he was coming down with his donkey and car anywhere. And of course, as he came nearer and nearer and nearer, he was fascinated, and so fascinated that he came across the bridge with his mouth open. And there were two soldiers standing with their spears to attention at Thomond Bridge. And they saw this yoke coming, this fellow above the donkey and car, and they stopped him. Of course, he couldn't turn. And he'd have ran if he was alone, but he wouldn't, because he left his donkey after him. So they put hands on him and, come on, come with us. Oh, the poor man, sure, he was shitting his pants with the fright. And they dragged him in anyway. One of them put the donkey in there in the whole house and dragged him up to the, I won't say the station, but up to the mayor's house in front of all these important-looking men in their robes. Who are you? Where are you from? And all the rest of it. The poor man, he was trembling. And I'm from the Clare side. We don't care who you are. And they took him up, wash him. They washed him and brought him back, threw a robe on him. You're the mayor. Huh? He didn't know what the difference between a mayor and a stallion, but they sat him in the mayor's chair. It's a fine chair. He was never in the case like that in his life. Sure, all he had at home was a three-legged stool. But in any case, the petitioners started coming in one door, and come on, advise them, whispered behind him at his shoulder. Do you know? He started, out of desperation, of course. What do you want, sir? What do you want, madam? And he started to give him an advice. And mainly, of course, it was about money and money. And the thing about him was he was quick at money, adding up the price of schools, this and that. And of course, as the one passed the next, he began to get more and more confident when he saw that nobody was hitting him or abusing him. I just at the end of the day, he was sitting down like a little bit like a mayor. And as the days passed, something, he began to be a mayor.
Yeah.
But his mother at home, you see, was missing. And she was, is he gone? Is he dead? Has he abandoned ship? Or where is he? No donkey, no nothing coming back. So she said she'd go out looking for him. And she did, inquiring here and there. Or he passed this way a couple of days. He passed this way, and eventually she tracked him down as far as Limerick. And there were the two guards at Thomond Bridge, as usual. And she said, sorry, Min, but did you see a man of that description? We did. What about him? Who are you? Oh, she said, I'm his mother. Oh, they stood to attention in front of her. Yes, madam, yes, he's above in the mayor's house. You're welcome to go up and see him. She went up, of course. Look, frightened, and there was Sean above on the mayor's chair with these fancy robes on him. Mother, you're welcome. And all the important people looking at this ragged old woman now. Mother. Well, Sean, what happened to you? And he gave the famous reply, Mother, how do I know what happened to me? Sure, Lord bless us. I hardly know myself. The mind what happened to me. The mayor of Limerick.
The mayor of Limerick.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And that's how he became mayor.
That's how he became mayor.
Yeah, a clear man.
A clear. There's also another question, Eddie, I have for you. Did you ever hear about the headless coach or anything? No. Yeah, my grandmother my father used to tell me my grandmother in Wexford would go out in November. I don't know why, I don't know what date in November, and would stand out in the middle of the road. Now, he could them days, there was no cars. And he said, there might be a bit of a wind there, but she'll leave her hair down, and next month the hair would go up. And
Well, that could be the Shigui as well. They say the Shigui, the fairy wind, and the headless coach. All those manifestations were around November Eve, because that was always regarded as the time when the fairies were let loose. The next world and our world, there's only always regarded to see as a small curtain between the two. The next world and our world. Now, if you said that to people today, they'd laugh at you.
yeah,
But they needn't. They needn't, because what we were talking about there inside in the other room a little while ago, look at all the people who get up in the morning and they're dead that evening. Look at all the people who they'll walk along the street and suddenly they're gone. People have only a very thin hold on this life, and they don't realise it. When I was in hospital there recently, I was looking across the ward at a man. He was lying on the bed, a complete stranger to me, and the doctor came in, and they were after doing X-ray on him for something else entirely. And the doctor, he said to me, because they discovered something else with me as well, that not the cancer that I was in for, but a twisted gut. They have a name for that. And the doctor said it wasn't the cancer would have killed me. That was a slow thing. It was the twisted gut. He said I could have dropped on the street with that. And it was the very same with the man across the way. He said he had a blocked artery in his neck. And that's what would have caused a stroke with him. And he'd have gone like that. And it was the X-ray. For something else, they discovered that. So people have only a small hold on this life if they only realised it. Now, the old people long ago knew that. They may have had different names for it. They may have called it for the fairies or this or that, but they weren't stupid people. And they, around November Eve, especially, they would have said the fairies are let loose from the forts and all the rest of that, and you were better to keep in on that night. Because for your own safety, because the fairies were going from one fort to the next, and if you were in their way on that night, bye.
That's serious.
Yes, it was that serious. And your mother, or grandmother, she was out maybe on that night, after midnight now was the dangerous time, between 12 o'clock and 2 in the morning. But if she was out, let's say on that night, it may have been
Yeah.
The fairies passing.
Yeah.
The seanchaithe, the fairy wind.
Fairy wind.
The fairy wind passing. And the headless coach was another manifestation. Now you could meet that at any time.
Yeah.
But of course, at Halloween particularly,
Yeah.
because the headless coach, the coach going from one place to another, mainly as a warning of death. The coach probably was a hearse.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Just like the banshee, a warning for somebody.
For someone. Yeah.
They were about to go. And very often, like the banshee, it was a friendly warning.
Yeah.
It wasn't something to be getting terrified about at all.
Yeah.
It was a friendly warning to be making your arrangements.
And there's also the three knocks as well.
Oh yeah,
That's another thing as well. I think that people
there was
get.
many things that were foreshadowing of death,
Yeah.
and a light.
A light as well.
Yeah. But a light was always supposed to be a good omen.
Yeah.
Not something to be frightened about at all. Light was always holy, they said.
Oh. Yeah. Just one more question over you. Eddie. I'll just ask one of the lads. Have you a question for Eddie? Come over to the mic if you want to. If you have a question.
Actually,
Yeah, no, Stephen, talk to the mic.
Oh, sorry. So you've told a number of questions over your life now, Eddie, I'd wager. So I have to ask, if you were, let's just say, you were cursed to never tell another story again, bar one, what story would that be?
Good Lord, what would it be? It's nearly an impossible question to answer because I sometimes, you see, I like to put in a political message to the stories. And the stories, they don't stay the same. There's the difference, you see, between storytelling and acting. Acting, you learn your lines. Storytelling, you don't. Stories vary. You might have the outline of a story, but the stories can vary even from the audience in front of you. And that's why I love to not tell stories in a bar, in a pub, because all you need is one idiot in a pub, one drunken idiot, because then the temptation will be to bring that fella, and mainly it is fellas, not women, into the story. And that's a dangerous thing. Because you could get a glass in your face. Because fellas, when they're drunk,
that's right,
they do things that they might regret afterwards. Yes. That I very much like, and that's not really answering your question yet. I love stories in various parts of the country. Cork, West Cork is great because they have a tradition of it there. County Louth, amazingly so. I've always enjoyed telling stories in County Louth. I only discovered that a couple of times when I was up. And that brings me to a funny thing, if I might. A book I'm doing next, Military Memories. Quite different, about the Troubles. It goes back and back as far as I could with the memories of old people from my recordings. Some of them as far as the Boer War. Yes, long way back. And right up as far as the Second World War, I stopped there. And that's very recent. That's only 80 years ago. But I have a lot of them from the First World War, and a lot of them, of course, from the Civil War and from the lead up to the War of Independence, and from the Troubles themselves. But I have one funny one from Brosna, my own place, that led to Dundalk Jail in 1917 or 18. A lot of these fellas, they were transported to different places to jail by the British to get them out of the way, as far away as possible. And I was told that one of the IRA fellas from Brosna, he was jailed, and then they were taken up to Dundalk Jail. And I did storytelling in that jail recently. They've done it up as an art centre. Beautiful job. The Oriel Art Centre, they call it now. And you can see all the cells and all. But I was told anyway that this man, I barely remember him. I do remember him as an old man. Jim Mack was his name, McAuliffe. But he and others were transferred up there as prisoners. And it was told that it was a very, very cold winter, 1917, freezing cold winter. And there was only one heating pipe running through all the cells, and they had to have their asses up against it. It was so freezing cold. And one fellow escaped from the jail that winter, and it was so cold outside.
Came back in.
He was knocking to be readmitted. Because,
Yeah.
he was in strange countryside. He
Yeah,
knew no
he knew
one,
no one.
and so he was knocking to be readmitted to the jail. So,
So yeah, that's good stories. I'll just leave Tony now.
It's fairy bush out in Castletroy. How would you identify that now? How will a person identify it?
thorn. A lone white thorn bush. A fairy bush is always a lone white thorn, a hawthorn,
Oh, Tom Bush.
hawthorn bush,
By itself, not
standing by itself, not on a ditch, always standing by itself. And that's the reason why you'll still see in the middle of a field here and there a lone bush.
I'd like to see that now.
Yeah.
And the fort, how would you describe a fort?
A circle, a big circle with a kind of
A mound.
a ditch of earth all around, a raised ditch of earth all around it. And usually bushes growing up, usually white thorn bushes growing up on the ditch of earth all around it. But sometimes too big trees, because people don't interfere with it.
Yeah.
And very often they're completely overgrown, the forts, because again,
Yeah.
people
No
let
one interferes.
some farmers let their cattle graze them, which is a good idea because it keeps them
Keep them
clean.
down in it.
Keeps them clean.
Eddie, I have to say thanks so much for coming in today. You've been brilliant, and hopefully we'll get you back some other time. Please God.
Very pleased to do it, and no bother at all. Thank you.
No, it's been an honour.
No bother.
Thanks very much, Eddie. This is the end of the podcast now from Tony, Stephen, and myself in St Mary's, and also Eddie. We'd like to wish everyone good luck and God bless.
And by the way, can I just mention that my latest book, The Man in the Big House, a poor man who spent almost 30 years in Ennis Mental Hospital, is now available.
We'll have a look at that. So Eddie will have a look around for that.
Do please.
Thanks very much, Eddie.
Great.
God bless. And thank you very much.